picked the president before, so we'll be watching that, even though it's not a big county, to give us some inkling of who's going to win the state.
Thank you, John. Dean Reynolds is our man in Ohio, and he has some information about the early voting there. Dean?
Scott, right behind me here is Ohio Secretary of State John Husted, who was just informing everybody of what we already know, that some 1.8 million people availed themselves of the right to early vote over the last 5 weeks in Ohio. And here's something we all need to understand about the tabulated vote as it comes out in Ohio, not the projected returns, but the tabulated vote. The early votes will be counted first. So that means by mutual agreement, people believe that President Obama won the early vote. So there will be a spike in President Obama's numbers in the immediate release of these votes. The officials here and I think the campaigns agree that the separation between Governor Romney and the president will probably diminish as the evening goes on. And of course, then the question is whether it will diminish enough or whether the early vote has built up enough of a cushion for President Obama to carry the state.
Dean, thanks. Jan Crawford has been traveling the length and breadth of this country with Mitt Romney for many, many months now. And Jan, Mitt Romney went to Ohio so many times you could be forgiven for thinking that he was running for governor of Ohio.
That's right, Scott. I mean, we certainly knew all the area codes down there. He knows the importance of Ohio. Look, today, he and his running mate were there for one last visit. Governor Romney made 26 visits to the state of Ohio during the general election. The campaign has always seen several keys to victory in that state, and he hammered them in the different areas of the state as he went there. Western Ohio, my campaign sources tell me tonight they're encouraged. They think his message has gone over well there. That's a very Republican area, and turnout is huge in those areas. They believe they're going to equal the 04 numbers, well exceed what they saw in 2008. They had to run up the score there if they wanted to turn the state. They think they've done that. They also like what they're seeing in southeastern Ohio. Scott, we spent a lot of time there too in coal country. He had several rallies around coal mines with miners. He stresses his energy policy. Those are Democrats, but Romney thinks he can pick up those votes. But in the other cities we've been to, Columbus, Cleveland, those are the high numbers for the president. Scott, is too close to call there tonight, my campaign sources say.
Jan, thank you. The president, of course, has been working Ohio just as hard. It is key to the president's election tonight if he is to be reelected tonight. If he can win Ohio, he can effectively block the Romney campaign. And Nancy Cordes is covering the Obama campaign. She's in Chicago tonight. Nancy, you've spent quite a bit of time in Ohio as well.
I sure did, Scott. The other day was a perfect example. We're 5 days out from Election Day. The president spends the entire day barnstorming Ohio, heads home to the White House to sleep, and then comes right back out to Ohio in the morning. To give you a sense of just how much he favored this one state, he held 101 campaign rallies across the country this election season. 26 of them, more than a quarter, were in one state, Ohio. And he wasn't just in the big cities. He went to the suburbs. He went to small towns. And the main reason that the Obama campaign focused so heavily on this state and always felt that their chances were better in Ohio than in, say, battleground states like Virginia or Florida was because of the auto industry. As you've mentioned before, 1 in 8 jobs in this state are connected to the auto industry. The auto bailout, very popular. The president never missed a chance on the campaign trail in Ohio to talk about how he had gotten the auto industry back on track and how Governor Romney opposed that bailout.
Thank you very much. We have breaking news of this moment. CBS News projects that Mitt Romney will carry the state of South Carolina. No great surprise. McCain won that state by 9% in 2008, but we can now project that Mitt Romney will carry the state of South Carolina. Bob and Nora, state of Ohio again. It's so critical tonight. It might be said that if the president wins re-election tonight, he may have won it in 2009 when he signed that auto bailout for Ohio and the rest of the country.
Very well might be the case. But you know, I still don't understand why Governor Romney went to Cleveland today. This is the most heavily Democratic part of the country and one of the most heavily Democratic counties. I mean, maybe he was just trying to tie up traffic or something to keep Democrats from going to vote there and hold down the vote. But I don't understand why that would be the place he would go on the last day.
Cleveland, of course, a heavily Democratic area, as Bob pointed out, and that northern part of the state, all the way from Akron to Toledo, has really benefited from that auto bailout that you mentioned. It did cost taxpayers $80 billion. Part of it has been repaid, but it would be about a $25 billion loss for all the taxpayers in this country. But it may be the best $25 billion Barack Obama ever spent in that state, because 1 in 8 jobs in Ohio is tied to the auto industry. And we've already seen, as Anthony pointed out in those exit polls, that about 6 out of 10 voters said they liked the auto bailout in that state. It helped them economically. And so that's really part of, I think, what we're watching tonight is how that state shakes out. Is people seem to have liked the auto bailout that Obama put in place.
Unemployment rate in Ohio is about 2% lower than the rest of the country. So certainly feeling better there in Ohio. Let's have a look at the presidential race map as it has changed over the last moment or two. The presidential race map there, we now have added South Carolina to the red states. Those states that CBS News projects will be carried by Mitt Romney. President Obama still with the single state of Vermont, but of course a very long way to go. Mitt Romney with 33 electoral votes on the way to 270. President Obama with 3 electoral votes, but of course a lot of big states have yet to weigh in. Let's also have a look at the popular vote as it's being counted now. We're going to show you this all evening long from time to time. These are the actual number of votes that have been counted across the country. Mr. Romney slightly ahead at this early stage with just over 2 million votes, and the president just under 2 million votes. But of course, as we'll remind you, the popular vote, though interesting, will not mean a thing tonight. It is all about the electoral vote and the effort to get to 270. CBS News coverage of America's 57th presidential election will continue in a moment.